with that being said, Sheriff, do you know if within the last year between 2022 and 2023, if there was an increase or decrease in murder and negligent homicide in Tarrant County?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it did not increase. Okay.
In fact, it went down by almost 17%. So great job. What about manslaughter by negligence, or we call it criminally negligent homicide?
I believe it also went down.
Yes.
It may be on ticking up at the moment on intoxicated and homicide may be ticking up at the moment in 24.
Okay, well, we had a 56.52% decrease. How about rape?
All those categories we believe went down.
Absolutely.
And I do credit a lot of incredible law enforcement and municipal police chiefs.
Awesome. So there actually was a decrease by 3.35% in rape. Robbery went down 4.5%, and both aggravated and simple assault went collectively down by 3.18%, and theft went down by 3.89%. This is at the same time in which we're talking about the migrant community and stoking these fears that they're bringing all of this trauma and this crime and violence to our communities. But when we look at a Texas community, Tarrant County, actually everything has gone down. And I do want to thank you for your service in that way, because it takes a team. It can't just be one thing. It means we've got to have great law enforcement, but we also have to have really good policies, and we honestly need to be honest about the data that we see. So overall, it shows me that Sheriff in Tarrant County, all crime was down, is what I can tell from the numbers. And do you know if Dallas County, which is next door, if they had an increase or decrease in overall crime?
I think all of North Texas we saw decreases.
Absolutely.
Every one. And again, Chief Garcia, Chief Neil Noakes, there's some great police work going on in both of those counties.
Absolutely. So,
sorry, I have a thing about scones. I love scones. Nothing to do with what to talk about. Sorry. You don't get this on other channels, do you? Jasmine Crockett. What a week she's had. Just for me, she's one of the best politicians around. You don't even need to agree with her politics. You just have to pay attention to how strong, how smart, and how always on the money, with a little bit of humour, she actually is. And I think the Democrats underplay her. This is somebody, for me, should be right out front, tearing down the opposition literally every day.
My colleague from Georgia, she talked about misinformation, and I don't know what she was talking about, but nevertheless, we can look at her own tweets and we can find plenty of misinformation, but we're just going to go through one specific tweet. Now, she said that we need to work with Israel to track down the serial numbers on any U.S. weapons used by Hamas against Israel. Dr. Snyder, I may be going out on a limb, but are you aware that that was actually just propaganda that was put out, and there actually were not U.S. weapons that were being used by Hamas, as she attempted to insinuate in this tweet?
I mean, we first of all, I appreciate the clarification. I knew that the question, who were the American presidents, was going to be the toughest one I got from that side. So I appreciate your helping me out. Yes, I mean, obviously there what you have is a typical example of American-Russian messaging, where the implicit idea is supposed to be we shouldn't give weapons to Ukraine because they're going to end up going somewhere else. There's no evidence for that. It's hard to think of an example where American weapons have been leveraged with such success as on the Ukrainian battlefield.
Thank you so much. In fact, for some people, especially people that serve on the committee, they may be surprised to know that it's actually a former Russian president and Putin's sidekick, Dmitry, and I don't want to slaughter his name, so I'm going to say Dmitry M., who actually she quote tweeted. See, the problem that we're having, and the reason that we're bringing up Russia as well, is because Russia is a threat as well as China. So we are not going to sit here and pretend as if it's only one or the other. But the biggest problem that we have is we have people that sit in this chamber and they spread the misinformation. If it was left in Russia or China, whatever. But the problem is that you have people that sit in positions of power and they have a $2 million budget. You think that they would call on some staff to find out if they were telling the truth about the things that they're putting on social media, but instead it works for their rhetoric. And
Mike Johnson did do the right thing on this. I am waiting to see if this is just a moment or if this is true movement, because he did go down to Mar-a-Lago not a week and a half ago and stood with Donald Trump, who is an unelected individual. He's a former president who literally seems to be holding the House Republican caucus by the arm.
Unelected, multi-indicted individual.
Exactly. So I'm wondering if this is just a moment or if this is true movement for Mike Johnson and evolution. And then secondly, I also think this is a triumph for the American people, but it really shows the depth, I think, of the President Biden, and Democratic leadership in the House. They have outmaneuvered consistently Mike Johnson and Republicans every single time in this 118th Congress, I think, Congresswoman.
I think it's a moment. I'm not going to get so excited. And those Democrats that have gotten out and said what they're going to do and that kind of stuff, listen, we follow our leadership. So they may have said that they're going to vote for him. Now, when I say I'm not voting for him, I stand by that. I only vote for Leader Jeffries if we have to go through this again. But he has to get to the table with Leader Jeffries for Leader Jeffries to then allow different Democrats to actually go out and do something. We don't do things for you or save you because you did the bare minimum of doing your job. We've got to get something out of this. Listen, we know that the Republican policies that have been pushed thus far are failures. And so the only thing that we can do is when he is in a time of need, that is our time to negotiate. That is our time to make sure that we can push through and get something as well. You know, doing the decent thing as allies and friends of various nations and countries, that's just doing the bare minimum. That's what we did. We did the bare minimum, just like getting through our budget. That is the bare minimum. It took us an extra 6 months. Yeah. So we don't reward doing the bare minimum.
The bare minimum, very important for the people of Ukraine.
Unserious hearing is a waste of our time and our resources. I yield with that, and I yield the remainder of my time to Representative Crockett.
Yes, I just want to make sure that I point out, and this is not a question, just in case you wanted to know, that on page 174 of your transcribed interview, line 9, it says, "This is an absolute lie," in reference to talking about the FBI. What you stated—
I did not call the
what was
FBI
stated
agents
right
liars.
before that was, first of all, I said that I'm speaking, and I did not ask you a question. First of all, it doesn't say Tony Bobulinski told the FBI. This is a summary of 2 agents that took notes through my interview, and their summary apparently that they presented says Bobulinski first met in person with members of the Biden family at a 2017 meeting in Miami, Florida. This is an absolute lie. That is what it says. The final thing that I'm going to say is about this. What we have from Kim Buck, a Republican, I don't think that the impeachment of Biden is appropriate, and so House Speaker Mike Johnson's ability to talk me into staying here is going to be about as successful as his ability about talking me into an unconstitutional impeachment.
I'll let her have 30 seconds over. Chair now recognizes Mr. Burchett from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Ms. Crockett for 5 minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Whew, okay, critical race theory. I just want to be clear. I'm gonna go to the end real quick because I know that was brought up. Critical race theory, is that typically taught K through 12, yes or no?
No.
Okay, all right, so we can stop with the nonsense because K through 12 was not teaching critical race theory, at least in this country. I can't talk about what happens in other countries, but in our country, K through 12 is not learning critical race theory, just for those that are unfamiliar. In addition to that, we just heard about AFT and what they're advocating for. And I know that there was a comment that you made as relates to discipline, and how that's something AFT should be advocating for so that teachers can be safer. Is that correct? Am I characterizing what you said correctly?
I believe that both the NEA and the AFT should endorse policies that keep educators safe. Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you a quick question. Actually, I would like for all three of you to answer this question. It's just a yes or no. We'll start at this end. When you were growing up and going through school, did you ever have to go through an active shooter drill? Yes or no?
No.
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 Oh, okay. All right. So can we agree that guns being kept out of schools may be one of those things that could keep not only teachers safe, but also students safe? Yes or no?
Yes.
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 Okay. Thank you. So I do want to touch on a few things that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez talked about, because I don't really know the breadth of your understanding or experiences. But to give a little clarity to the district that I come from, 20% of my district live at or below poverty. And I do come from an urban district. I do have a majority minority district. I know that we've talked about DEI and diversity. And I find that when I'm here, I am constantly fighting to make sure that I can break through the noise and the stereotypes that exist around not only my kiddos in my district, but just my constituents. And one of the things that maybe some of you have never experienced, I don't know, is the fact that one of the leading reasons that students in my district don't show up to school is because they are poor, because some of them are homeless. We found that there were children that didn't go to school because they didn't have clean clothes. That is something that certain people don't have to worry about. And they found that if they brought in washing machines so that kids wouldn't make fun of them because they had clean clothes, that they would show up. These are things that maybe in a more affluent district, they may not need money for. So while one of my colleagues talked about how much investment has to go into some of these school districts in the inner city, I do want to make it clear that there are different obstacles that my kiddos deal with. In addition to the fact that I practiced criminal defense work prior to coming into the legislative realm. And in my district, I have the highest incarcerated zip codes in the entire state. What that means is that sometimes I have children that go home and they don't have parents to go home to. Or if they are going home to parents, their parents may be involved in things that aren't necessarily the best things for kids to be around. And so, as it's already been stated, sometimes the safest space is at school for some of these children. And what is so annoying to me is that we debate whether or not we will invest in our futures. As far as I'm concerned, there is no better investment than in our children. Because if we are going to make sure that this country continues on, it's not going to start by investing in people that look like me or of my age. It starts with making sure that there's a foundation. And I just want to say that I am thankful for those teachers that decided to go in, even when they were under-resourced, even given of their own resources, to make it happen. I lost teachers in my district during the pandemic because they literally risked their lives in the midst of a pandemic to show up because they love those kids that much, because I can tell you, the pay is not there. Teachers aren't getting rich. Maybe professors, but not teachers. And so the fact is, I've talked to my school districts. They were able to take advantage of the extra money that was given to them, but guess what? They still had gaps that they needed to fill. And the reason that I brought up gun violence is, number one, it's a safety issue, but also as it relates to the mental health. Children nowadays know where they need to go in case somebody comes in. They're looking for the closet. That is no way for kids in America to live. So we need to make sure that we put kids first. Thank you so much, and with that, I will yield.
Thank you.